All right, today we're diving into the story of one of the most controversial figures in all of Chinese history, Emperor Yang of the Sui Dynasty. His reign is, well, it's a perfect case study in how one person's massive ambition can literally build an empire and then completely destroy it.
And that brings us to the big question that historians have been wrestling with for more than 1,000 years. Was this guy a brilliant visionary who dreamed up a unified, powerful China? Or was he a power-mad tyrant who was willing to sacrifice everything and everyone to make that dream a reality? Let's dig in.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. It's night and day. On the one hand, you've got this leader who literally connected the north and south of China with an engineering marvel, the Grand Canal. But on the other hand, he's the guy whose projects and wars led to the deaths of millions and completely bankrupted and destroyed his own dynasty. How can both of these be the same person?
To really get a handle on the emperor, you have to start with the man, before he even got the crown. See, his path to the throne wasn't a sure thing at all. It was a masterclass in pure, cold, calculated ambition.
So this is him, Yang Guang, the future Emperor Yang. As the second son, he wasn't in line to inherit the throne. So what does he do? He basically puts on the performance of a lifetime. While his older brother was out there living it up, Yang Guang played the part of a humble, simple, totally devoted family man. It was all an act to trick his parents, get his brother out of the way, and snag that crown prince title for himself.
And this quote really tells you everything you need to know about his mindset once he finally got the power he craved. For him, it wasn't just about ruling. Oh no, it was about bending the entire world to his personal will. That's a level of self-belief that is just off the charts, and maybe just a little bit of fatal arrogance too.
So that massive ambition immediately got focused on the one project that would define his legacy for all time, the Grand Canal. You have to understand, this wasn't just a big ditch. He saw it as the literal spine of the new, powerful China he was going to build.
Just try to wrap your head around that number. 1,776 kilometers. That is an insane distance. It's like digging a river from Paris all the way to Warsaw, mostly by hand, back in the 600s. The sheer scale is almost impossible for us to imagine today.
But here's the thing, it wasn't just a vanity project. The canal was strategically brilliant. It meant grain from the fertile farmlands in the south could easily feed the capital cities and armies up north. It meant he could move troops faster than ever before. It was designed to be the economic and military superhighway that would hold his empire together.
Okay, but a vision on that scale comes with a price tag to match. And this is where the story gets really, really dark. Because that massive weight, that incredible cost, fell squarely on the backs of the ordinary people.
More than 5 million people. And let's be clear, these weren't paid workers. They were farmers, peasants, ripped from their homes and forced into brutal, back-breaking labor. Ancient records even say the ditches were literally filled with the bodies of workers who just dropped dead from exhaustion and sickness.
And where was all the money going? Well, you can see it right here. An unbelievable 85% of the entire empire's budget was being burned on two things: his giant construction projects and his constant disastrous wars. That left practically nothing for, running the country or helping the people.
And here's where it all starts to connect and fall apart. Year after year, he kept sending his armies to invade the Korean kingdom of Goguryeo, and year after year, they got crushed, with horrific losses. Meanwhile, back home, the people were already at their breaking point from the forced labor. These failed wars were the final match that lit the whole country on fire. The very emperor who believed his will alone could shape an empire's destiny was about to find out he couldn't even control his own. The whole system, the dragon throne itself, just started to crumble beneath him.
So how did it happen so fast? It was like a domino effect. First, the endless, pointless wars just sucked the country dry of soldiers and money. Second, to pay for it all, he taxed the people into starvation. That, of course, led to step 3, massive rebellions breaking out everywhere. And the final domino? He was betrayed and killed by his own generals, the very men supposed to be his protectors.
And this is how it ends. No epic last battle, no heroic sacrifice. He's just cornered by his own commanders in a palace with rebels running the country. They gave him a choice of how he wanted to die, and he chose to be strangled. A last, desperate attempt to keep his body whole and maintain some shred of imperial dignity. It was an absolute and humiliating end. So that brings us right back to the beginning. The man is dead, his dynasty is a smoking ruin, so how on earth are we supposed to judge his legacy? What's just so mind-boggling to me is this final tally. His own Sui Dynasty? It lasted a mere 37 years, a blip in Chinese history. But the Grand Canal he built? It's still being used today. He created the economic engine that fueled the next great dynasty, the Tang, all while guaranteeing his own would collapse. Through his cruelty and his arrogance, he lost the mandate of heaven, the right to rule. It's the ultimate irony. His tyranny paved the way for a golden age that he would never get to see.
And at the end of the day, we're left with this impossible question. You can't deny that his vision shaped China's future for centuries to come. But that future was built on a foundation of unimaginable suffering, on a literal mountain of human bones. There's no clean answer here. And maybe that's what makes the tragic story of Emperor Yang so powerful and so unforgettable.